Once again, a great pleasure to be in one of the ET meetings, and I'm glad that I've been able to make it most of the times that it has been held, because all of us look forward to it as a learning experience, and I'm sure this afternoon also I would too go back wiser than before. But before that, the lady is too much engaged in conversation. I thought you would feel glad when I thank you for your generous remarks. And when she was saying all those good things about me, I was looking around to make sure whether it was me that she was talking about. So maybe that's very polite of her. I don't know how much she meant it, but it sounds good, and I would rather like to believe what she has said, because it's a great motivation. Thank you very much. Yeah, even if it is said out of politeness, it sounds good. Now, as far as the theme of this Congress has been selected very thoughtfully about the digital public infrastructure and all that is happening to digitally empower India and also empower the citizenry of India. I think the last 10 years have been significant in more ways than one, because there has been a huge transformation, a game-changing transformation. Of course, the digital public infrastructure, when we talk of, is one, because we have come out with role models which are being emulated by the rest of the world today, whether it be the direct benefit transfer experiment, very successfully conducted. In fact, it had been initiated even before, I think in the beginning of the Modi government, Modi 1.0, somewhere in 2015 itself, when the Prime Minister announced Digital India program, or launched Digital India program. And the result of which was that the accounts were opened up, and I think the best evidence of that, the best testimony of that, and the best litmus test of that happened when the pandemic struck. And there were no disruptions as far as transactions are concerned, because nobody would have actually predicted that there's going to be a pandemic. So if it could have been foreseen that COVID is in the offing, in the line, then of course we could have gone in that direction. But that means that we were moving in that direction, the natural course itself, and then pandemic struck. So that, I think, is the biggest compliment to the visionary approach which this government adopted after the new Prime Minister came in 2014. Another program is, of course, the Swamitva, which is again being talked about again the world. If you talk of empowering citizen, I think that's the most grassroots example where a citizen or a farmer can map his farms, his land, without having to seek the assistance of a revenue officer. And almost, I think, 70% of the Abadi villages, as they call in this country, have been completed. And the other day I was saying what would happen now to the Patwari, because the Patwari was the most lucrative job in this country. So that precisely is an example of citizen centricity, or citizen taking over the charge of his own destiny. And of course, our CP-GRAM, the grievance redressal, of course, which is also related to my department. Before 2014, you used to get just about 2 lakh grievances across the country, complaints. Now it's gone up to nearly 25 lakh. And that's because somebody asked me in a lighter way, and it's because the people have started complaining against your government. I said, no, it's because we have been prompt, we have been forthcoming, we have followed a timeline, so people have the expectation that their grievance would be redressed. And the grievance redressal is almost 95 to 100% every week. And all this is again a testimony of what this digital thing happens, because they lodge complaint because they know there will be a response. So there's a famous Ghalib verse that "Jab tawakko hi uth gayi Ghalib, kyon kisi ka gila kare koi." So you don't even express regret when you know the other side is going to be insensitive. So there has been digitalization, which is of course technology driven. But the thought behind it is very, very human, very sensitive. So that is another testimony of this. And I think the intention of the government, which is something which is very less talked about, is, if you recall the vote of account that was presented by this government somewhere in the month of March or April, because during the election year, the actual budget is presented after the election, because true to the democratic spirit, it is considered to be the prerogative of the government which is going to come in the incoming government, because they identify their priorities of budget allocation. So therefore, an outgoing government just makes a vote of accounts, which in common parlance is known as a Kamkaji budget for the salaries, wages, etc. And mostly the political dispensations are known to dole out some computers, sewing machines, freebies. But why I'm saying you to recall, because this is an evidence-based era. In the vote of account that was presented by this government just before going to the election, the hallmark was, A, when we come back, we will launch a special program for Bharat modular reactors, the small modular reactors. So such a futuristic declaration, which is not going to have immediate benefits of the election outcome, of the vote outcome, but yes, there was conviction, there was courage. The second was that we would be rolling out a viability fund for space startups. And the third was that the National Research Foundation, which has been newly established, would be allocated separate funds. So the three major announcements which have a huge bearing on India's future role in the global arena were the part of the vote of account, which mostly the governments present with an eye on the election of the voter. So that itself, I think, is the biggest testimony of the courage, the conviction with which this government has been working. And even in the first 100 days of Modi 3.0, we had 10,000 crore allocated for the space startups. We rolled out, we were among the first in the world to have rolled out a biotechnology policy called BioE3, biotechnology for environment, for employment, for economy, and the Mission Mausam for 1,000 crore. And then the budget which followed had a very revolutionary declaration of opening up the nuclear sector to the private players, where of course an interface like this is going to be of a great help. So I think this is a government which has broken many taboos of the past. Till a few years ago, it was almost a crime peeping inside the gate of Sriharikota. If you dare do that, you could be prosecuted. Now for every launch, you have 5,000-10,000 people watching. And we have not less than 1,500, 2,000 media persons. Next time you should be there. I think that's the only way I can return your compliment. But what I'm trying to say is that we have spectators now, beginning from Leh, Ladakh, Punjab, up to Kerala. So we opened up. And the private investment is so heavy, even the FDI investment, the startups of the first generation are rolling in millions now. Same is our vaccine story. We opened up to the private sector, and because if we have to move on from here, we have to move on in a synergized manner. And the examples or the benchmarks which we hold for ourselves of the countries who have made it already have done it because they didn't depend on the government alone. And this government is also very consciously aware of this fact. And therefore, nuclear sector is something which was never expected, never even demanded, because in fact, when Homi Bhabha started this program, many were skeptic that India was up to some mischief of producing atom bomb or something like that. But today, we are in a position actually to vindicate Homi Bhabha, saying that we are going to have a 100 gigawatt target. We will be contributing majorly to the fossil-free energy when we go net zero by 2070. And from Fragile 5, we've come to, from Fragile 5, we've come to first 5. Our startups were just about 350, 400. Now they are more than 1.75 lakh. The Global Innovation Index has gone up from 81 to 39 because the figures speak for themselves. It's not that I'm saying because I am a part of the government. You could always check, and everything is in the public domain on the websites to verify. We are today ranked number 6 in our patent filing, and that's a global ranking, which is something which India was considered to be quite alien to all these concepts. And what is even more remarkable, which you could in fact be taking up in your morning walk gossip, is that out of these patents, as many as 56% are resident Indians. क्योंकि पुराने ज़माने में होता था कि साहब हाँ हरगोविंद खुराना तो बाहर गया तो हुआ ना, यहाँ क्या किया, चंद्रशेखर बाहर गया तो हुआ ना. So out of the 6 ranked patents that we have in the world today, majority of them are the ones trained in India, groomed in India, educated in India, worked in India, and made a success story in India without having to go abroad. So that's the difference between today and about 20 years ago. And every year in the month of December, when the year concludes, they do a kind of a world mapping as far as technology is concerned, innovation is concerned, including the digital phenomena. And the first 2%, the top 2% of the world technologists and scientists, comprised of as many as 5,352 Indians. So which means that now the world has actually begun to understand that India is no longer a follower, it is in a position to give lead. We've proven that more than once. We did that in the space sector. We started off much, much later. We started off actually in the year 1969 when America landed a human being on the surface of the moon. But today we have gone to the southern pole earlier than that. Likewise in biotechnology, we were never taken seriously for healthcare. Today we are leaders in preventive healthcare. We are the first to come out with a vaccine and gift it to the world. So these evidence-based success stories have established India as a technology leader. And why bioeconomy? Because the next revolution is going to be bioeconomy driven. That is the considered view across the world, like the earlier revolution, which happened, IT driven, the industrial revolution. And we are already into this. So, and the government has been very forthcoming. Our budgets have increased. If I just give you an example, for example, the Science and Technology Department had a budget of just 2,777 crore in 2013-14, the last year of the UPA government. The current budget this year of this government is 28,509 crore, which amounts to 926% hike. And likewise in every sphere, biotechnology also we have a hike of 132% from 1,485 crore in 2013-14 to the current year being 3,447. And likewise in every department, for example, even in the Department of Space from 5,605 crore to 13,406 crore, which is 138% high. But mind you, this is only the contribution of the government. The pool is much larger because we've opened up. So many times more than what the government has allocated in budget would be the funding happening actually in the actual numbers. And the National Research Foundation, which was established recently, is also on the same lines. It will have 60-70% of resource from the non-government sector. And of course, the government will be providing it funds, but that will not be the eventual or ultimate sum total. Whereas in the earlier years, till about 10 years ago, whatever was provided by the government was the sum total. That too has increased now many times. The government contribution has increased. No longer you can say that the government doesn't give technology the kind of preference it does, but at the same time, government has opened up the other sources, as a result of which the pool has become very large. And now we are no longer behind as far as technology is concerned. We are now active across the domains. For example, we are the first 3 or 4 countries in the world we have launched mission quantum technology. We have a separate mission for artificial intelligence, green energy, climate. Now we are laying down targets for climate. Net zero by 2070. And so many promotional programs for women, whether it's Vigyan, Jyoti, etc. But I think gradually now that phase is also over because it's no longer women participation. Women are leading most of our technology initiatives now. Our Aditya L1, the first ever solar mission, we were the third in the world to have launched it, was led by a woman called Kalpana, actually still in the process. Chandrayaan 3, the second head was a woman, of course she was Kalpana, and Aditya is Nijar. So what I'm trying to say is that now it is we folk who have to learn to be led. So you don't have to be asking them to come over and give them an opportunity or slot. So that also, in a way, India has taken a lead. And that way, I think now this is one of the better times happening. And both for innovation, technology has given a lot of esteem to Indians also living abroad. There were times when youngsters going from here were sometimes reluctant of revealing their entire identity. Now it carries a premium. If you say you are Indian, you are actually preferred in a startup group. And I find most of the European countries, many Indian boys and girls in the startup groups. I asked one of the group heads, I said, why do you prefer Indian boys and girls? He said, he then counted a number of merits. they're hardworking, they're this, like she was doing for me. But the end, she says, they don't take a weekend off. हमारे बच्चे तो हमें भी नहीं दिखाई देते, फ्राइडे आफ्टरनून गुम हो जाते हैं, मंडे वापस आते हैं. And rightly so. So I think we have made a mark, and that has given us esteem, confidence that we can do it. And therefore, I must compliment the organizers. You are holding a conclave like this at the appropriate time when we are actually taking off in a very, very big way. Thank you very much.